1, 2, 3, 4.
closest buddy, Ronnie Beck.
This is Ronnie Beck, a Bay Area-based drummer, singer-songwriter, producer, mentor, husband, father, and grandfather. Ronnie was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. At age 18, after reaching the top of the Omaha music scene, Beck decided to go west, along with his twin brother, Don E. The brothers followed their mentors, Buddy Miles, Herbie Rich, and Stemsy Hunter, to the West Coast, all of whom had just joined Michael Bloomfield's Electric Flag. Since 1971, Beck has been established and welcomed by the Oakland and San Jose music scenes. Ron E. has performed and recorded with Tower of Power, Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis Jr., Bobby Womack, John Lee Hooker, Bell and James, Robbie Neville, Sylvester and Two Tons of Fun, Bill Withers, Clifford Coulter, Lydia Pense, Sista Monica, Dr. Lonnie Smith, Fred Wesley, Chester Thompson, and Merle Saunders. Known primarily as a funky drummer, Ron E. is also an accomplished singer, whose vocal style, according to Emilio Castillo, the leader of Tower of Power, is akin to Johnny Guitar Watson with a touch of Felipe Wynne of the Spinners, and has been praised by such notables as Tom Bell, Carlos Santana, Steve Cropper, and Wallace Scotty Scott of the Whispers. From 1975 through 1978, Beck toured and recorded with the highly acclaimed group Tower of Power. Speaking of TOP, my first memory of hearing about this band, even though I already passively heard the songs driving around in my mom's Capri, I didn't know it was them. My first real connection was way back in the day shopping at a Guitar Center in Santa Ana, California. That was my drum hub at the time, where I would spend hours just wandering around and dreaming. The drum salesman that day was pushing me to buy a set of bongos they had just bought off this band at Tower of Power as they were passing through on tour. I thought, I've never heard of them, but what a kick-ass name. So I had to buy them. They turned out to be more of a trophy in my drum room than an actual piece in my workstation, but I still have them and I'm glad I hung on to them to this day. Tower of Power's sound, to me, was the quintessential 1970s funk sound. A little R&B, mixed with syncopated horns, mixed with rock, mixed with a heavy funk foundation. Everything was tight and ultra-energetic. In this interview, I playfully compared their sound to the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack by Andrew Lloyd Webber, probably because this sound was in heavy rotation on rock radio at the time. And, as a kid, I was just trying to classify it in some way, I guess. Of course, they were much more than belting vocals and breakbeats. This was a band full of elite shredders, no matter what members came and went, and there have been many, many changes. As a kid of the 80s and being obsessed with new wave rock music, I took their influence subconsciously, and only later on, when I was really elevating my chops, was I able to dive into their discography and really appreciate their craft. In 1975, Ron E. jumped on the kit when the master David Garibaldi left the throne for a few years. I gravitated to Ronnie's style in particular because to me his take was more aggressive, more urgent, and a bit more emotional. Ron E. has put out several solo releases as the main writer, producer, musician, and lead singer. On his latest effort, DNA, Beck wrote about his legacy. It features members of his immediate family, his mom, Jeannie Rogers, his twin brother Donnie, one of his 3 daughters, and 3 of his grandchildren, all of whom are musically talented. The songs on this project tastefully cover the music spectrum from old school jazz through R&B to hip-hop. Beck continues to gig internationally and is currently taking on male and female students as part of his mentoring program, the Ron E. Beck Drum Institute. For the past few years, I've been a sub for Ben Smith in a Tower of Power cover band in Seattle called Dr. Funk. Woodshedding the whole TOP catalog has been a fun and challenging ride, and really cool to see the various styles of different cast members and their interpretations of the songs, including Garibaldi and Beck's style. Ron was nice enough to spend a little time with me so I could shower him with love and tell him how much he meant to my musical growth and drum style. Let's check in. I'm in the Seattle mountains, so maybe 20 minutes. The nearest town is called Issaquah.
So you're in Washington?
Washington State, yeah. I grew up in LA. Moved up here several years ago. Been involved in the Seattle music scene for quite a while.
Yeah, Seattle's a cool place. I like Seattle.
I bet you played here quite a bit.
I have.
Jazz Alley, maybe.
Jazz Alley, yeah.
I'm probably in a band right now where a few of the guys actually know you, but because it's a TOP cover band.
Okay.
But mostly the stuff I've been doing in my career is like, bashing rock stuff, straight ahead. Very aggressive. And then, I'm in the band with Duff from Guns N' Roses, and they're going to be really busy next year once stuff opens up.
Can you do me a favor and turn your mic up just a little bit?
Yeah, check. It'll be a little more noise.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
So my thing's a little different. I explained like my accident, but it's going to be a little bit more narrow because I discovered you at a certain time. I'm self-taught in my drumming, so I'm not a DJ and I'm not a journalist. I'm just a drummer. And the reason I started this channel is to reach out. When I was in a real low point of my healing, I was trying to figure out how do I put positive energy out there. And so I started reaching out to my drum heroes and just exchanging ideas and hearing about them and just showering them with love, basically. Thank you for, inspiring me enough to hit the drums or write songs, and you're an incredible singer and you're a multi-instrumentalist and you're an arranger and you're, multi-talented and you come from a musical family. So I'm really honored just to...
So you've done a little research then.
A little bit. But me, self-taught, I grew up in LA. There was K-rock, it was new wave, it was punk. But previous to that, before I even got my first snare drum in the late 70s, driving around in my mom's Capri, there was AM radio, and I did hear, stuff that was coming through my brain, the TOP stuff from the 70s, and not only that, but there was this sound of the 70s, this funky, very aggressive rock kind of thing. And I think that I gravitated to that because I grew up in a house full of singing women too. They were on stage all the time singing. They were doing Broadway shows and stuff like that.
Nice.
And so the Broadway shows, such as like Jesus Christ Superstar, was coming through my brain even though I was doing other stuff. And I don't want this to sound like an insult at all. It's actually a compliment to me. But before the first thing I thought of when I heard TOP was, this kind of reminds me of the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack, because it's the high energy and the vocals, the belting, the funky grooves, the break beats that were going on. And so I had to do, after that, once I taught myself the drums, I had to do some deeper research, and that's when I found you in especially like 76, 77, 78, the live stuff. And in particular your versions of the TOP songs, which, and I'm gonna let you talk here in a second. To me, they were a little. I connected to them more emotionally, and the tempos were different. And
Yeah, everything was really fast.
very fast, but man, I was into it. I was like, this is more aggressive. This is like and I'm gonna try to loop this back around. I heard in an interview that you did during my research that when you see so much talent on YouTube, and what they're missing is the history and the nuances, and that I connect emotionally as a drummer and as a songwriter. I teach kids here, piano, guitar, whatever. There's pain and there's loss and there's love, and I think a lot of that comes out in your music, and especially since you're a singer-songwriter, you understand that. You have to present that on stage. Maybe you can talk just a little bit about like how you developed your drumming style and why that maybe stood out to me more than other drummers who've tried to do the TOP stuff.
Well, for me, I mean, what you just referenced there was just, there's an emotional connection. Like when I write songs, it's usually about personal experiences, situations, you know, like I'm just finishing up my 6th album right now. We're going to drop it next month. And I always touch on my emotions, and my personal experiences is what I draw from when I do my music, man. And for me, as a young man coming up in the music, and as I'm sure you've experienced, man, as in cover bands and stuff like that, man, I never really related to that. I was always wanting something different, hearing something different, and something that I could put my signature on. It was very important for me to be able to put my signature on what I do, because for me, especially from the singing perspective, when I sing, I don't sound like Stevie Wonder. I don't sound like Bobby Womack or any of those great singers from the 70s, and I loved all of them.
You sound like Lou Rawls and Luther Vandross combined, but better.
Yeah, not so much Lou Rawls. I would say Luther Vandross, I gravitate to. Yeah. There's another guy out right now, man, that Gregory Porter. Are you hip to him?
Yeah, I've heard that name, yeah.
Yeah, no, Gregory Porter, I heard him, and I had a friend call me one time. He said, man, have you heard Gregory Porter? I said, yeah. He said, man, that's you. And a very dear friend of mine from Oakland, he called me one of my mentors, and I took that as a very high compliment. So it took me a lot of years to find my own voice and to learn to appreciate my own voice, because I didn't sound like other people, man. And I thought it was a flaw, but in reality, it actually worked to my benefit that I had my own style. I just had to learn to embrace my own sound and develop my own sound and learn to write songs that could demonstrate who I was as a musician. And in essence, that's what it's about anyway, man. You know, it's not about sounding like somebody else, it's about sounding like yourself. And I approach my drums the same way. I have my own. I've had people tell me that I'm a very musical drummer, and because I sing, I listen to singers, and singers mostly have said that, man, you're a musical drummer, and because I pay attention to the singer, you know, and if there's horns in the band, I pay attention to the horns. I mean, I try to play what the music is calling for, and that's been my approach most of my life, you know, 50 years now.
I think that's an advantage for you, is being a songwriter, singer, and understanding space when you're in the drum kit. There was one point when I was recording where AC/DC's engineer said I played like a conductor. And at that point, I didn't understand, but I also knew I was writing songs off to the side when I wasn't a drummer, just like you. I think that is an advantage, where you know where to place the space is the right spot. You don't want to overplay. You know where things should jump out. You're editing as you go.
Wrong one.
You told me blue.
This is the wrong one, but it's okay.
It's blue.
Is that Monster? You got to watch your health on the Monster.
He knows that.
Oh, they find weird stuff in the cans in the factory at the Monster stuff.
Well, it hasn't killed me
Tastes
yet.
good.
It hasn't killed me yet.
Okay.
It just gives me a little bit of energy. And I have a long day today. I got to get back when we get through with this.
Nice. I'm glad things are opening up out there.
Oh my God. Man, I hadn't played it. I'd been in the studio a few times because I was working on my record. But in the last year and a half, man, I've only done 3 gigs. And I've never gone that long in 50 years without playing. I was always playing.
The last month and a half?
No, the last year. And a
Oh,
half.
okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. My last gig was like Valentine's Day of last year or whatever. I can't even
Yeah,
remember.
no, I did a few gigs, and dude, I have to tell you, it was a little rough because my endurance is down from not been playing. I'm actually a little apprehensive about the gig tonight. Uh, I got to come with energy, man. It's like,
All
dude,
right.
yeah,
Well,
my endurance is not at peak.
yeah. We'll try to condense this so you can start sweating it out. So the
Well,
new record, I'm only, excuse me for being a novice and learning more about you because I was just in a small pocket of how you affected me. How far back was DNA? Like, what are you up to now on the solo?
DNA was 2019.
Okay.
And then this new one will be out this year, 2021. This one's called Still Grinding.
Okay.
And Ronnie Beck, the best you've never heard, still grinding. And I am still grinding. I'm still out here,
The best you've never heard. You're the 50-year overnight success.
That's funny you say that because I've said that many times myself. Yeah, it took me 50 years to become an overnight success. And that's not an uncommon story.
Yeah.
A lot of guys have been out here doing it for years, man, and they never give up. And that's the kind of guy I am. I'm not a quitter. Yeah, I'm sure we heard as kids, the quitters never win and winners never quit.
You have a vital energy, you have a vitality to you. Let me tell you, I've talked to a lot of drummers in the last year or so, and I love the energy. I love that you're still going for it. You're an inspiration because I always come to a point, it's like, it's all over. Throw the drum kit across the room. I'm never going to get better, And then 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, I wasn't able to do that a couple months ago. Just a little
That
blip
comes
of
with
hope.
experience. Yeah, you learn to navigate the waters you're thrust in, Um, a friend of mine told me, I was talking to him recently about, man, dude, having gigging. He said, man, dude, it's like riding a bicycle. You'll be all right. And, I had to kind of wrap my head around that. But for me, Burke, uh, all of the guys in my band are younger than me. I'm the old guy in the band.
Yeah.
And I tell them all, I say, hey, man, when I get through with you guys are going to be old because I'm stealing your youth. They inspire me to be my best and to be motivated. And as being a band leader, and I'm sure you're aware of, man, is that there's a lot more things that you have to do that guys kind of take for granted, like coordinating stuff and scheduling, making phone calls, email, text messages, and just.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting, but that's what it calls for. I mean, somebody's got to do it. And if you're going to take the responsibility to do that, then you got to make sure you do it right. And the young guys, my young guys, they're all hungry for the experience and the knowledge that I've acquired over the years. And it's a mutual exchange. I say, hey, man, I'm learning about the way you guys hear music and the way you approach music, and which helps me to be relevant at this point in my life. And that's my goal, is to try to, as I hate when I play something for somebody who says, yeah, man, that sounds great, man, but it sounds dated. I hate that term. And what I've learned to do on this last project, man, is there are some things that I did years ago that never got released. But I had a young guy that was my engineer that mixed the stuff, and he mixed it to today's standards, industry standards. The shit sounded like it's supposed to sound. And I've got young guys accompanying me and helping me do this, and it fits. It works, man. And it's kind of like there's a history lesson on this new record where you can like hear stuff that, like, man, that sounds like something from the 90s. Yeah, but listen to what was happening, because it's, as you mentioned earlier, it's about doing the history and learning where it came from.
Yep.
You said your background, man, was like Jesus Christ Superstar and what was happening. And
Well, that was my bridge into like how I fell in love with your drumming. That was,
Well, and I have a similar background. My mom was a great jazz pianist and singer. She was classically trained. And so we were listening to jazz standards in our home when we were kids. And my mom's band would rehearse there. Me and my brother, my twin brother's band were rehearsing. I have a younger brother and sister that are twins. So there were 3 bands rehearsing at our house as kids and back in the 60s. And all of them with different styles of music, man. So we had this very eclectic mix of music that was all good. All of
Yeah.
it was good. You
Yeah.
know.
You mentioned, the jazz background, which I had so very little of. I had like, this is gonna sound stupid, but I was so into punk rock. I was so into new wave. Orange County. But then there was like, I lived 10 minutes from Disneyland, and I got to see Buddy Rich
Okay.
live in Disneyland in the Carnation Plaza. And then of course there was like the Vince Guaraldi trio, from the Charlie Brown stuff. And then
Right.
I had a Spanish tutor who got me into the Oscar Peterson trio, just randomly, like while I was studying Spanish. And those kind of things, just I got absorbed in that. There was a different way to hit the drums. There was a different approach emotionally, and it's odd how you can be influenced in random ways some way, and you can always bring that to the kit and apply and just expand your portfolio like that.
Well, I'm an advocate for, I tell young guys that I talk to, it's like, for me, a good foundation is jazz. Because and I'm a believer that if you learn how to play jazz, you can play anything. Charlie Watts, the drummer for the Rolling Stones, man, one of his goals was to play some jazz. He wanted. And I saw Ginger Baker before he died, man. Dude, it was amazing what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ginger Baker was with Cream, man, right?
Yep.
Those guys were playing like the 60s rock thing, man. And then I heard him playing this world beat stuff, man, in his show, man. It was really, really good, man. This guy was in his 70s when he was doing this, man. It was right there, man. Matter of fact, I saw him and then I saw Steve Gadd at the same venue. And I actually enjoyed Ginger's show more than I did Steve Gadd's.
Wow.
Steve Gadd's one of my heroes, But Ginger really, really, matter of fact, years ago, back in the early 70s or late 60s there, Ginger Baker and Elvin Jones had a drum off. I don't know if you ever heard about that. It was amazing. And Ginger hung, because Elvin Jones is the guy for jazz.
Yeah.
And Ginger was hanging. I said, man, look at this cat, man. I just do this, So my point is simply, in foundation in jazz, first of all, with jazz, you learn how to play with nuance.
Yep.
It's like with punk rock and speed metal and all, because I got students that are like into that stuff, man. And it's all about aggression and power and fast and
Speed, yeah.
Can you play soft? Can you play something soft? Can you play a ballad? Can you play something slow?
About not being a lead drummer. You don't have to be a lead drummer.
And I celebrate that too, man, because the drums have come way up front, man. Years ago, man, the drums, and then, you had to really listen to hear what the drummer was playing, but now the drums are up front. The drummers are featured more, and a lot of the styles of music today, man, the drums are very prevalent in that music. So that means you got to come with something. And I celebrate that as well, man, but you still need to understand different things about music, man, because you never, you may get called to do a gig and you don't have any money. You got to take the gig. You got to understand how to play that gig.
Again, expand your knowledge, expand your portfolio.
I've played Jewish weddings where we had to play Hava Nagila. And dude, it was terrible, but I actually got to hear a real Jewish band play Hava Nagila, man, and it was mind blowing. I told the guys, I said, you hear that? That's how Hava Nagila is supposed to sound, and we ain't even close.
Yeah.
We're hacking through it.
We can fake it.
And it speaks to what you said earlier, doing your history, doing a little research, and as we both know, you can find anything on YouTube nowadays, so there's no reason for us not to know what it's supposed to sound like. And you don't have to play it exactly like that, but you at least need to understand where it came from and what the original statement that was being made, and try to get somewhere close to that.
Yeah, it's paying respects, at least. At the very
being
least.
respectful of the genre and where it came from. Exactly. I agree with that. Anyway, man, what is this, man? What are you calling this, man? Tell me about Bert Thomas. Who are you? What's up, bro?
I love this. I like the vibe. Grew up in Orange County, south of LA, self-taught, no girlfriends. I did a lot of sports. All my other friends surfed, but I went home and played drums every day. I learned on vinyl, so I actually memorized the skips. Eventually, my first pro gig was at 14, so I started playing under 21 and up clubs at 14, opening up for big new wave acts or whatever. So I'd have to play the show and then get kicked out and read comic books or whatever. I moved up to Seattle in the 90s. I had an audio engineering degree from Loyola Marymount in LA, but there was no job, so I started cleaning houses. And I joined like 7 bands because I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone when I moved there. One of them actually ended up signing to Warner Brothers, so instead of being an audio engineer, now I'm a drummer. And that's been going on for 25 years, you know, from band to band to band or whatever. And the current one is the one with Duff. It's called Loaded. And then when I got in a crash, I was playing with Roger Fisher, the original guitar player of Heart, and his brother Michael is still the manager. And
yeah, I did a gig with Heart up in Seattle, man, and he was crazy. Tower Power opened up for Heart.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, this is back in like 1977, 78, man. Dude, there were thousands of blue jeans walking around, man. That's an image I just cannot forget. All of these blue jeans, just people walking around. I said, man, I've never seen that many blue jeans in my life. Blue jeans,
The Northwest
girls, boys,
70s.
everybody, and it was crazy, man. That just kind of stuck in my head from all those years ago. So what is this thing that we're doing now? What do you call this, Bert?
Oh, it's called Drum Recovery Network. I stuck a title on it. It's, you know, it's reaching out to the dudes who wanted me to, who made me play drums in the first place, to love music, and to keep me out of that dark place where I don't think I'm going to heal anymore or whatever. And just talking to you about your background, how you helped me, and if you had any similar, you know, comebacks, maybe along the way. You've had such a long career. Maybe you've had to put up with a nagging injury or something that you've like had to hide from your bandmates, or arthritis or anything like that.
I have not had that, man, but as a lot of musicians have had, is substance abuse.
Yep.
Yeah.
That included.
Well, in the 80s, man, cocaine was flying, you know, back it started in the 70s, man. And no, that was cocaine, alcohol, man, just for me is just abstaining from that, because I'm kind of I don't have much self-discipline when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I said, man, I can't be around that, man. You know.
Yep.
And
It's
you
good
want
for
to
you.
lose something, man? No, man, don't. I'll take a little bit, but don't give me a lot, because I'll do it. And you know, and it's been a struggle that I've had since I was a teenager. You know, I started drinking beer in high school, and it just like you, all of my friends were jocks. I was not a jock.
Yeah.
But what happened for me and my whole family, because we were all musicians, is we were all playing music and starting to get good. So all the girls and all the guys, you know, was coming to our house to see what we were doing. And so the jocks ended up coming over our house. The basketball team and football team was coming and hanging out because all the girls was at our house. Like, yeah, man, these guys are musicians and they're getting good, man. Look at. So they were saying, hey, you don't have to play sports to get girls. You can be a good musician. And that's what the older guy told me when I was a teenager. He said, hey, man, it ain't about being cute. It's about being good. He said, if you get good on your instrument, man, all those things will come to you. And that was my motivation when I moved from Omaha, Nebraska to San Jose, California in 1971, man. I wanted to get as good as I could get as a teenager and just get as much experience as I could. And at that time, man, in the late 60s and back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s in the Midwest, there was a very thriving music scene, big time.
Why San Jose, not LA?
Man, I went to LA, man. I hate LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much game in LA, man. There's a bunch of con, man. Dude, I was hanging out, walking down Sunset, man. People handing me business cards, man. Yeah, man, you're a musician, man. I can get you a deal. I mean, everybody's got game, man. And it's like, I want to be around real people, man. That whole LA scene, man, is I'm sorry, it's very phony to me. It's just everybody's got a game, everybody's got a hustle,
Did you have friends or musician friends or family in San Jose who was like, yeah, you need to come over?
No, not really, but actually guys that left Omaha before me and my brother came out here, uh, came out in the late 60s. Our heroes from home, as kids, came out and joined up with Michael Bloomfield and Electric Flag, and they had the hit record. They were signed to Warner, I think they were on CBS, and they were making money and stuff, and they were doing it, man. They were wearing the cool hippie clothes, the bell bottoms and stuff, and I said, man, that's what I want to do. Matter of fact, when I left Omaha, I had a scholarship to go to University of Nebraska at Omaha, and my grandmother hated that. I got to go to California. She said, son, why don't you just stay here and get your degree first and then go? I said, no, I got to go now. I was like 18. And I don't have any regrets about that. I kind of wish I had stayed, but I really feel like when I came to California, it was the right time because it only took me a few years to fall into things. I moved here in 71 and I joined Tower in 1975. So 4 years, man, just gigging around town. Next thing I know, I get a call to record and tour with a main band. It's like, okay. And that kind of opened the gates. Plus the notoriety that came from playing with Tower Powers carried me for the last 50 years, man. It's like, dude, you play with Tower, you must can play.
It's a pretty good business card right there.
Well, I don't really talk about it that much. I had a guy tell me back in the 90s, man, he looked at my biography. He says, yeah, man, you've done a lot of stuff, but you look like a dinosaur. Because most of the things I had done was back in the 70s. And I wasn't offended when he told me that. And I said, yeah, man, that makes sense. He said, where I'm at now, a lot of guys are comfortable resting on their laurels and what they have done years ago, and what would be considered maybe their peak in their career. I don't feel like I've peaked in my career yet. I'm still looking for that mountaintop. I want to go to the mountaintop and look over on the other side and see what's happening.
I love that.
Like Martin Luther King said, I've been to the mountaintop. I've gotten close. I've seen the music business at that time at the highest levels. You know, did the big record contract signing with CBS back in 1976 in Beverly Hills, and all the suits were there and attorneys. And I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar deal that we were signing. So this was huge. And I was like in my 20s, man. And it's like, dang, I got to see that. And that has been my inspiration, my motivation my whole life. It's like, okay, I may never get back to that level, but it lets me know that I was good enough to get to that level, and I got to see it because there's a lot of guys, we've met them, that never break out of the local scene, never tour, never leave town, never get any further than just.
Why is it they're so talented? Why can't you break out, you know?
Well, and that's that other part of it that we both know, man. It's like, it's the business side of things is what comes into play. And
or can you live with them in a van for a few weeks? Can they even, or can you actually live with them in a van for a few weeks? You know.
Well, I've done that too. That's how I got to California, was in a U-Haul van with all our gear in it. And yeah, we drove from Omaha to, stopped in Las Vegas, and then came to San Jose. So yeah, but no, man.
Well, I mean, your stamp. I'm going to interrupt. Your stamp is permanent, regardless of what these agents are saying. You're a dinosaur or whatever, because it's like, ask them, what are you listening to? I'm listening to all this current hip hop. Okay, tell me where that breakbeat comes from. Tell me where that loop is influenced by. It's all going to be traced back to your era when you were playing. You're often imitated, you know. It's permanent, you know. You can't avoid that. Even the 90s, all the 90s hip hop stuff was all 70s breakbeat loops, you know, Melvin Parker, or Bernard Purdie, or the 70s T.O.P., whatever.
Yeah. And that's true now too, man. I was listening to some stuff on the radio because I don't listen to the radio that much. But I'm hearing all these old songs from the 70s, man, and they've written new lyrics to it and stuff. And I said, man, that's, you know, that's and it's a hit. I'm saying, okay. One thing that's good about that, though, is the original artist does get paid, because there was a time when they first started sampling in the 80s and the 90s. Where
lawsuits.
Paid. Yeah, but no, now you get paid, man. I even got a little check from some stuff they sampled, man. So
good.
I ain't mad at them.
Just a side note, with some fans, I don't consider myself like the obsessed T.O.P. fan. I'm still learning, and I know what I've grabbed from you, but some fans say that the period that you were in the band, at least the live shots I've seen, was like the best lineup. But you don't have to agree or disagree, but why would you think that is? the time that you were in the band?
But you know, the band to me was at its peak in like 1973 when Lenny Williams was there, when David Garibaldi was there, and the band was intact. And David left the band because he had left the band twice before I joined the band. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I knew deep down inside, and I discovered subsequently that that's his seat. And anybody that comes in and plays and get David Garibaldi's place, as I found out in 1978, David wants to come back to the band. So when David wanted to come back, see you later, Ronnie Beck. But dude, I was so cool with that because being in that band, I was exposed to the music industry, the game, at a very high level. I got to meet some very important people. And Emilio, the leader of the band, you know, he let me do things, man. I was watching him and I was learning how to produce and how to write and just how to really navigate at that level. So the world of experience from those 3 years I was at the band has carried me through my whole life. Just those 3 years, I learned so much and got me into producing. One of my favorite things to do now is to produce. I'm working with young cats. I'm working with my grandson and a couple of his partners. They're doing a little hip hop thing, you know, and they do stuff and then trying to help them like, okay, man, so what's unique about what you're doing? Because you sound like so-and-so right now, man. You ain't gonna make it if you sound like Drake. You gotta have your own sound. And I'm just trying to educate them. And they're very receptive to me bringing my experience and the exposure that I received back in the day. The game is so much different now. The music game is different. The marketing game part of it is critical. And it's much more incumbent as a result of Prince changing the game, that the artist has got much more responsibility about their success than years ago. The record company made the artist. Now the artist has to find their own niche. Then the record company jumps on and markets and finds their demographic, promotes and does all that stuff to really get you to the masses. And something I've just learned recently is that there's a big, what they call collaboration thing going on in music right now. Look at like Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars. I was like, man, what are they doing? And he broke it down to me. He says, man, they're sharing their audiences, man. They just they just doubled their audience by those two guys coming together. So cats are much more open to doing that. Back in the 70s, they weren't doing that. People were very territorial. It's like, no, man, you know, there's stories about acts that were touring together that hated each other.
It's across entertainment, whether it be a talk show or music or my stupid sports stuff. You get 6 Raider hosts in one show, and they're constantly they're crossing their audiences, you know, sharing. It's happening, like, and it's super smart with, you know, today's
very
technology.
Smart. It's brilliant. No, but that's so different from what it used to be. You know, I was on a plane, a charter jet going to Hawaii to do the Crater Festival in 1976, and all the acts were on the plane and nobody was talking to each other. I was all excited, man, I'm gonna get to meet this guy and that guy, man, and everybody stayed in their own little section of the plane and nobody was talking to anybody. I thought it was gonna be this hang. It wasn't, because in those days, you grab a hold of what you have and that's yours, man, and you covet that, and you're protective of that. Now, it's much more open. Cats are sharing because in reality, there isn't enough room for all of us out here. This is a big world we live in, man. And there's enough room for everybody. So don't be territorial, share, be open, learn, grow, expand. So that's what I'm about now. And I'm fortunate to have some people that are introducing me to that way of approaching the business. And I'm really excited about what we can do with this new record, hopefully more than I've ever done in the past. Because the guy told me, he said, man, your stuff's all over the place, man. We got to get you focused, man. We need to
rein it in.
Well, what he said, I need to push, his exact words, Ron, you need to push reset. You need to reinvent yourself and you need to market yourself this way. And all of that stuff you've been doing is great. He said, man, dude, if you make some noise with this one, you can re-release all of the old stuff and people be going back wanting to do the history to find out where you came from. But right now, your stuff is fragmented and there's nothing to grab a hold to. You gotta have a focused approach to how you market yourself.
Yeah.
Generate some traffic, get some interest, get some internet visibility. Then it's gravy after that, because then it just builds on that. But you got to have a starting point. And it kind of shocked me when he told me. This is only like 3 weeks ago, man. But I've been thinking about it since he told me that, and it makes sense to like, okay, reset. Let's get focused. Let's approach it with the way the industry is being dealt with now to be relevant in today's marketplace, and then build from there. So I'm excited about doing that.
I think it's cool to share audiences, but at the same time, there's a uniqueness to you. So I always consider it, there's 3 levels of fame, right? Who is Ronnie Beck? Someone get me Ronnie Beck. And then the highest level is someone get me like Ronnie Beck. So do you think it was at some point after the TOP experience, whether it be drumming or singing, that someone was after you for your thing? The way you hit the snare or the way you hit the singing note? Was there a time that you remember that someone was like, oh, I need this guy because he's got a sound that is unique?
And I did experience that after my experience with Tower Power. I was getting calls, doing sessions. I'd go to LA and do sessions.
Yeah.
And because I had found my little niche and the reputation that I got from playing with Tower Power, because even when I was with the band, man, the whole band would say, man, Ronnie, man, you play Davis stuff really good. We love the way you play Davis, because I had to learn David Garibaldi's stuff to do that gig. And the band leader said, Ronnie, you got to learn his beats, because the band was built around the way he plays the drum. I mean, horn arrangements were done around his drumming. So the drum, his signature drum performance was an integral part of the sound of that band. And I had to learn his stuff. And I never really, up to that point, experienced really having to learn another drummer's stuff verbatim. And Emilio told me, the band leader said, man, you can play it your own way, man, but you need to learn what he was doing. And it was a great learning experience for me that's carried me for many years. And what you referenced, you know, I would get calls. As a matter of fact, in the late 70s, a guy up here in San Francisco named Pat Gleason, Star Wars had just came out, and he was endorsing EMU synthesizers, which was the big synthesizer back, because they had the technology.
Yeah.
And he did the whole Star Wars music soundtrack on his EMU system. And he called me, and he called Harvey Mason and a couple other drummers to come do that session. And it was because of what he had heard and seen of me with Tower Power. So, like I said, man, plus I get emails and text messages and stuff to this day from that video from 1977 when we did Soundstage in Chicago.
Yep.
Everybody looks at that on YouTube and says, like, man, dude, you were killing, man. I was like, well, dude, I was 23 years old, too. In fact, that was 76. I was 25 years old.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Was he a character, William McGee? Do you have any little stories off the stage?
Eddie McGee, William
He's
Eddie
full
McGee.
of energy, yeah.
Actually, man, you know, when Lenny left the band in 75, and they got Hubert Tubbs, and Hubert lived in San Jose, and he and I used to go to rehearsal together. And then Hubert left the band, and they were looking for a singer, and I turned them on to Eddie McGee, William Eddie McGee. And Eddie McGee was a character, man. That guy was different. But, you know.
Couldn't sit still.
Well, he's gone now. He passed away a few years ago. But, you know, but my guys were, Rick Stevens, first of all, was my favorite tower singer, and Lenny was second. Lenny sold the most records with the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lenny was singing with the band now, but Lenny wants a whole lot more money than they could afford to pay him. Because he's got his own solo career where he's going out doing that Southern Soul market and getting paid. So they can't afford Lenny Williams anymore. But no, I remember, matter of fact, when I was with the band and Edward McGee, William McGee was, we never called him William, we called him Ed McGee, Eddie McGee. His name is William Edward McGee, but we called him Eddie McGee. Anyway, Eddie was on the gig and Lenny was at the gig, man, and Lenny walked on the stage and the women in the audience just started screaming, and Eddie McGee was not feeling that.
Oh
my God, no, this guy, Lenny had presence, man. He stepped on the stage, didn't say a word, and they started screaming. I said, oh my goodness, you know. And Lenny's got that kind of presence, man. He also has that kind of business sense too. Lenny's a very astute business person. And Eddie McGee got his butt whooped that night. Lenny Williams just turned it out. And I would talk to Eddie. I said, man, because Eddie's thing was, man, I want to sing higher than Philip Bailey. I said, man, this music don't call for that. That's Earth, Wind & Fire, man. You got to have your own thing. Because I would always tell Edward to sing down in his voice because he had a beautiful voice. In fact, he got the gig singing down. He came to the audition and Emilio had him sing something in the lower range of his voice and he just killed it. And I said, that was your ticket. Then you come out here and all of a sudden you want to sing all these high falsetto notes, man. The band doesn't call for that. You don't need to sing over them trumpets, man. You need to sing in between the horn section, man. And that's a hard gig for singers, man. That's why they've had so many singers, because you're singing over horns all night, man. And I used to tell them, I told Eddie McGee that, I told Michael Jeffries that, I told Hubert Tubbs that. I said, man, you guys are trying to sing over the horns, man. You got to sing in between the horns. Don't compete with the horns. Let them speak, and then you speak in between. And it's easier, and then you're not going to kill your voice by doing that, because some guys ruin their voices. Hubert and Eddie both ruin their voices trying to sing over those horns, man. That's hard to do.
Is your current band, is that what you call the Soul Live Review, or does you have a different band name?
No, it's Ronnie Beck Soul Review.
So Ronnie Beck Soul Review.
Yeah, REBUE, like they used to spell it. Ronnie Beck Soul Review.
And that's the band on the new record.
They're on a few songs, some of the stuff that I did with my brother and some other people, man, but they are the featured players. My band, man. I love my band. Took me 5 years just to find the people to be in my band. I mean, I was going around different spots and
scouting.
I went to this open mic in San Jose, man, and I saw my drummer and my guitar player. And I saw what they were doing. I said, man, hey, man, you guys want to join a band with an OG? Yeah, man. Yeah, we want to learn some stuff. So, and that happened in 2005. So it's been 16 years since I've actually had my own band. We haven't done a whole lot in the 16 years, but we've been making records, playing together, doing a few gigs here and there. And I think it's before I'm ready to say, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I want to try to see how far we can go with this thing.
Well, the ones that jumped out to me, I love the stuff that I saw on YouTube. Rainbow, like I love the message in Rainbow and the reggae feel, and Lonely Hearts. It was more modern with that synth bass in Lonely Hearts. It was really cool.
Yeah, well, and that's, again, that speaks to what my goal is musically, is to have a blending of old school and new school.
Stay current, yeah.
Well, I don't consider it trying to stay current. I would rather say I want it to be relevant. I want it to be something that younger people can gravitate to, you know, because I could have went the blues circuit, which I did a lot of in the 90s, man. And it's a bunch of older people out there, white-haired people my age and older, and that just didn't appeal to me, man. I like playing to young people, man. I like playing for the millennials and Gen X folks, man, and that's the demographic that I have targeted and successfully reached out to. And I think it's partially because I'm young at heart and I have a younger band, and I want my music to be relevant today. It could be old school, but it still has a relevance today, and it can reach younger people. And that's my motivation, and that's what I aspire to do right now.
I bet you think about it all the time.
I don't think about it much because that's kind of been, I made up my mind that's what I want to do. So now it's about execution. Yeah. And you come up with an idea, concept, and say, okay, now you got the idea. Now let's make it work. Let's bring it to reality. Let's bring it to fruition. And we've been able to do that. And I'm trying to take it to more people, man. Matter of fact, 4 years ago, we went back to Omaha, Nebraska, where I'm from. And they have a thing there called Jazz on the Green, which happens in the summer on Thursday nights for 12 weeks during the summer months. And I brought there was enough of a budget there for me to bring my whole band back there, man. And it was 20,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. It's a beautiful venue, man. Nice stage, great sound people. I mean, it was really very well done. And I said, man, how many people out there? They said, man, there's about 20,000 people out there. And I'm glad I didn't know that because probably would have spooked me. It's like, man, 20,000. But it was just a sea of people, man. And it was outdoors, and it was beautiful, man. And I'm looking to get back there again. I'm going back next month, do a couple of club gigs just to keep my name in the mix. Matter of fact, I was recently inducted into the Nebraska Arts Music Hall of Fame. My whole family was, because we had a musical family. So
Wow,
yeah, they paid
congratulations.
tribute to my mom and my brothers and sisters, and it was done on Zoom. But we're gonna do a live presentation when I go back next month, and I'm looking forward to that.
That's great. Do you know if the Bourbon is still there? Are you gonna play the Bourbon?
I'm sorry?
The Bourbon. It's a club called the Bourbon downtown Omaha. That's the last place I played. It was like 2 years
Downtown
ago.
where? Omaha?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
real
familiar.
close. I remember I loved Omaha because I always went running every time I played when I was on tour, and there's a bridge that connects Omaha to Iowa. Is that the next state over?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
talking about the Mormon Bridge?
I think so. Looks pretty new. It looks pretty modern.
Well, yeah, Omaha's right on the eastern border of
Yeah,
Nebraska, so it's like 5 miles to go from Omaha to Iowa to Council Bluffs, which is the city. They're
yeah.
kind of like sister cities. Matter of fact, Council Bluffs is where all the casinos are at. So everybody in Omaha goes to Council Bluffs to play in the casinos, and give their money away. A lot of my friends are doing that.
I just remember jogging back and forth across that bridge before the show. So
Hmm.
it was one of these metal tours I was on, but
Well, that's cool.
I enjoyed my stay.
Well, right now Omaha's lit up because the College World Series is there, man.
That's
You
right.
cannot get a hotel in Omaha there's two events that happen in Omaha. College World Series, which is in June, and then I think in the spring, Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett's company, has their convention. And I
Oh,
went back there one time when Berkshire Hathaway was doing their convention. Man, I had to stay I mean, I couldn't get a hotel downtown because it's just people come from all over the world come to Omaha for those two events, the College World Series and the Berkshire Hathaway convention, man. So, and Warren Buffett still lives in Omaha, and Omaha is relevant. Mutual of Omaha, ConAgra, and all
yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, people don't realize, they think Omaha's a country. No, Omaha's a thriving city, and there's commerce there now, big time.
Yeah, I enjoyed my stay there. I don't want to keep you forever because I know you have to rehearse. There's just a couple of technical things because, like I said, I teach little kids here. I saw in one interview that you explained the difference between eighth note funk and 16th note funk. For example, like Ohio players and average white band versus the TOP funk. Maybe in just a couple seconds or something, you can explain that if a young person was
Well,
listening.
and that's an interesting topic there because for me, I'm more of an eighth note funk guy.
Yeah,
I mean, I can do the 16th because that was what Tar was doing. Tar was doing that. Um, well, Snarky Puppy's doing that.
yeah,
There's an evolution from Tower to now where there's guys that are doing more of a syncopated thing. And I come from Stax, Muscle Shoals, and I wasn't a real big Motown fan, but the music that I gravitated to was more of the eighth notes. That's why I liked the Average White Band. We toured with them back in the day, man. And me and Rocco were hanging out after the gig because we opened for them. And I said, man, that's the real funk. Because our stuff was like this busy stuff and all these 16th notes, which is cool. But to me, less is more, man. When you can make it sound good and work with less.
16th note funk with one hand is super funky, but I think there's like Boz Scaggs Lowdown or something. That's more like 16th note both hands funk.
Um, that was kind of it was more of an eighth note, but the drummer I think he was playing 16ths on the hi-hat.
Yeah.
But when I think about 16th note funk, like you can go back to, I got one for you that you might not recall, Dyke and the Blazers. Have you ever heard of those guys? That James Gatson was playing with. You hip to James Gatson, right?
Yeah, I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah, top studio cat back in the 70s. Now he made a lot of money playing on everybody's records, but he came from that school, and that was 16th funk. the old Kool and the Gang was doing kind of more 16th funk, and then they turned that Diodato came in and simplified them and made it more of an eighth note, made it more, I hate the term, but more commercial, and they made a lot of money and sold a bunch of records, man. So 16th note
Wait,
funk,
guys, where's an old Kool and the Gang 16? Would that be like Too Hot or something? What
no,
would you
this
bring
is
in?
before Too Hot. I'm talking about, dang, I can't think of a title, but it's early Kool and the Gang before they got James Taylor.
Okay.
No, this is early Kool and the Gang. They had, if you go back and listen to some of their stuff from the late 60s, early 70s, before they really hit, like around 75, 76, some different stuff. And it was more about the music. But then once they got a real singer,
Before Jungle Boogie or around the same time?
there you go, Jungle Boogie is an example.
Okay.
Yeah. And even War, like you listen to Slipping in the Darkness, that could be considered a combination of a 16th and 18th, eighth note funk, you know. But a lot of that stuff, and I talked to guys about, and that was, to me, was the difference between Tower Power, because Tower, dude, we used to rehearse 5 days a week when we weren't touring.
Wow.
Nobody does that. You rehearse when you're getting ready to go on tour, but it was very rehearsed. Everybody knew where everything was happening. There would be little changes here and there, but there was a script.
Wow.
And
It's discipline.
very disciplined. But I like more looseness. I like more spontaneity. And that's the way I approached that gig. You know, I wouldn't play the song the same way every night. And the guys liked it. They said, man, that was nice what you did. What I did? I said, no, you did something different. So David is a very structured player, man. He comes up with these incredible beats, and he'll play that same beat forever. I mean, he's 50 years playing the same stuff. And it's funny because I heard him recently where he's starting to play stuff different because he's played each song a million times. I mean, how many times can you play the same thing? But that takes discipline, and I respect that. But he's definitely more into doing stuff that he didn't do years ago, and I respect that.
Last thing for you, and again, I appreciate it. So again, with the kids, in my TOP cover band, it's called Dr. Funk out here. There's a full horn section and everything, and it made me going from rock and metal and screamo and emo into, since I've had my injury, playing more groove-oriented stuff where I actually have to listen to the band and, play with dynamics, heaven forbid. But we always open up with "We Came to Play," and at least the way I play it with the horn accent, everything is left on the maybe you play it different, but that would be like a level just above beginner, which I would show the drummers. I have this thing called the drummer's tool belt, just practical things that you can bring into any room around the world and communicate with musicians, whether you can speak with them or not. What would you think are like one or two of the most important things through your experience that you would tell a kid, if you want to be in a band and you want to go make a career out of it, you should really make this the most important thing, whether it be technical or just have a good attitude?
There's three things that I tell them, because I teach kids too. In fact, I have students that are 8, but I'm just trying to get that back because all of that's shut down. Because I go to my students' homes and I teach them at home. I had my own studio, man, and I was teaching to pay rent. That wasn't working. So, I tell my students, my young people, and I have students that are like in their 40s and 50s too. And they're beginners too. I love working with the young beginner students.
Me too,
I really do. Because during my teaching career, I've had some intermediate students, and it wasn't as much fun for me because it became more of a competition. It's like, dude, I ain't trying to compete with you. You play like you play, I play like I play. Have you done what I've done? You trying to find it. So how can I help you? Yeah,
they reach a certain age. They're like, I'm good.
Well, and it's that, late teen, early 20s thing. They're getting ready to go to college and stuff. Man, I had a guy and a girl both, and students back in the early 2000s that they wanted to learn some tricks and stuff and wanted to try to pick my brain about what I knew and how I approached it. But to answer your question, to me, the most important thing to any drummer is to have accurate timing. that's number one. That's numero uno.
You have your inner pulse. I've seen before.
Well, and for me, I did some sessions in LA, man, where they were checking my tempo, man. I was in a studio with Steve Cropper, and he was producing the session, and it was just me and him in the studio, and there was a clock in the console at the studio. I think we were at Cherokee in LA. And he said, man, go out there and play, man. And he pushed the timer, and I played for a little while, and then he stopped. He said, okay. And he said, man, your tempo's the same at the beginning as it was at the end. And I wasn't hearing the click. I wasn't playing to a click. He was just checking me, seeing if I start because there's a lot of records where it starts one place and it ends up a little bit faster.
Oh yeah.
But my time and I was blessed with a good body clock, and I consider that right here. It's like you feel it and you play to that. So I consider number one is accurate time. The other thing I would say, as a result of like the hip hop thing and drum machines, drummers play a lot more accurate now than they did years ago because of drum machines. Drum machines is metronomic, if you could say that. It's perfect timing. And I can listen to the younger drummers now, man, the Chris Days and those guys. Their stuff is way more accurate than it was like in the 60s and the early 70s. In the 80s and the 90s when everything was drum machines, man, guys had to learn how to play like that. Still have a human feel, but perfect timing. In fact, nowadays with Pro Tools and Logic, most music is created to a time source. There's a click track.
A lot of the new rock stuff is like unlistenable because not only is it so on the grid, it's just they sound replaced all this drum sounds. It's the furthest thing from organic, And
yeah, but I mean, do you know why that is? I can tell you.
To make the impact while you're driving around through the speakers.
No, it's for editing. When you're recording, man, if everything is recorded on a grid now. And for editing, man, you can copy and paste, and you can.
Yeah.
If you got a perfect time source, then it's interchangeable. I mean, trying to edit, man, on something that hasn't been recorded to a click is virtually impossible. So that's what the impetus for that is. Everything having accurate and perfect timing is post-production, man. You can edit and you can move stuff around, and that happens. Man, dude, I've done some things in my production. Matter of fact, years ago, you couldn't punch in the drums. Dude, I can punch in drums now. Can you imagine that? When we were recording back in the 70s, they said, man, the whole band would say, Ronnie, man, did you make it? So what do you mean? He said, did you make any mistakes? I said, no. They said, good, because we can fix our stuff because there was a source there.
Yeah.
Right. But nowadays, click is a source, and everything's recorded to a grid, and that's for editing purposes, man. It's when you got perfect timing, you can change the whole structure of a song and change it from what it was. Anyway, perfect timing. The second thing is, I think it's important for a drummer to realize that it's very important I like to listen to the bass player because I feel like we're a tandem.
Yeah.
Learn how to play with the bass player. And something I learned through my experience with Tower Power is to play with the rest of the rhythm section, and the horn section happens on top of the drums. With the foundation, that kick drum and the bass, that's your foundation, and you're standing up and you're stacking on top of that. You play with the gut. For me, a lot of times the snare drum, grace notes and stuff would be for the guitar. The hi-hat would sometimes be for the keyboard player or the cymbals. So you learn how to implement things that you're doing on the drums to play with the rest of the band, and you have to listen to the rest of the band. I feel like the drummer should know the song. The drummer to me is like a catcher on a baseball team or a quarterback on a football team. You know all the plays, you know what's happening, and you got to know the songs. The third thing I will say, and I encourage my drum students, is to learn to listen to the singer or the lead instrument. Like if the guy's on a saxophone, he's playing a solo, you have to accompany him. I mean, when I was a younger guy, like 17, I was playing with this guy in his 40s, which to me, that was old when I was 17. And he wanted to whoop my butt because I was back there practicing and doing a bunch of stuff during his solo. He said, man, don't do that. Don't ever do that when you're playing. You listen to me and you play with me. And I didn't understand that concept. So accurate timing, learn how to lock up the rhythm section and play with dynamics, not at one volume, because a lot of drummers nowadays just really pound, especially rock drummers. Everything is about aggression and anger.
All the time, 100%.
Yeah, you're on 10 all the time. That's boring to me.
It's competition.
Dynamics, man. And people tell me, say, Ron, I like that you play with dynamics. That's why they call me a musical drummer, because I'm listening and I'm playing for the song.
Yeah.
Not playing what I'm hearing, but playing what the song calls for. And a lot of times, less is more. More often than not, less is more. Nowadays, drummers, especially in like the gospel chops and that whole arena, man, those cats are playing a lot of stuff. Bass players and drummers are just, and keyboard players are all over the place, but it works for that style of music.
Yeah.
And the third thing is just paying attention to the singer, and that also is playing with dynamics, man. If the singer is singing soft, man, you got to come down. And a lot of times the singer will look to the drummer to bring the band down, because the drummer is conducting the band from the drums. As you know, you can make the band be loud, you can make the band be busy, you can make the band be sparse and open. That all comes from the drums. So you're kind of QBing the band from the drums. And
not only that, bad drummer, bad band.
Well, a friend of mine said it like this. He says, as goes the drummer, so goes the band, is what he says.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to have a good band without a good drummer. It's just impossible.
We've all seen our favorite bands when the drummer's replaced and how different it sounds.
Well, I've never seen it, man. There's no way that any other instrument can do what the drummer does for the band. As goes the drummer, so goes the band. You gotta have a good drummer for it to be a good band. I've never seen a band that had a weak drummer that was a good band. You can have good players in the band, but if the drummer's not playing up to the level, and that's also one of my things, and I tell my students is always try to play with someone better than you, as good or better than you.
Yep.
And I've experienced this in my life in the 80s, man. I played with some lesser than musicians, and David Garibaldi came to my gig and he said, Beck, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm getting paid. You know, I had a 4-night-a-week gig. That was my income. Man, you need to stop playing with these less than cats, man. You're gonna hurt yourself. And he was exactly right, had In the 90s, man, I had to try to get my chops back, because in the late 80s, I was playing with these B and C players, and they didn't come up to my level. They brought me down to their level, because I always consider myself an A player.
Yeah.
And you cannot play with B and C and D players, man, because they will.
Yeah, you get a little lazy. Yeah. Your ego kind of kicks in.
Well, for me, I found other things to motivate me to do those gigs. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't always the music. And I'm going to just say that.
I got you.
Okay.
Hey, sir. So I've been watching some of your warm-ups that you do on YouTube. And just with all the therapy I've been doing, I get hooked up to electricity, I get stem cell injections, I get all kinds of weird spinal cord stuff. And that's the place that I'm trying to get back to. Like I said, I'm about 75%, but I'm trying to get back to that when you're doing the 16th note shuffles on the kick. When you're getting a little... So I have what's called drop foot from the spinal cord injury. It's very common where your foot...
Well, I want to ask you, man, what happened to you? What injury did you have, man? What happened?
I rolled my car after a gig, and I got ejected on a highway.
Oh, my God.
So I was paralyzed for a few days, and I was in the hospital for 30 days. I had spinal cord surgery. So I had a friend deliver an electronic drum kit to the hospital, and the doctors were pissed off. But it was just something I could look at, while I was laying there in the brace. And I was able to actually play on trash cans and pillows by the time I left the hospital, because it's like... It was my first love, it's music and drumming, and I didn't want to be without it. And so again, like, it became my joy dropped quite a bit. It became a joyless life, and that's why I started the channel while I was improving. But watching your rehearsal videos, it's so inspiring, because it's like, of course I'll never be at the level that you are, but I remember when I used to be able to do those things, and I'm making small improvements, but I'm trying to get back there. So watching you do that and then talking to you in person like this is a real healing moment. So I appreciate your time.
Well, Burke, anything I can do, man, to keep you inspired and motivated. I will say this to you right now, man. Whatever way you're able to figure out how to do and to get to a level that you are comfortable with, that's enough. I mean, just from this conversation that we're having, man, I can see things about who you are, just how you view life. It tells me a lot about how you play.
Interesting.
And you have to understand, man, that, you know, the bar is high because we listen to these super drummers, man. And for me, that doesn't bother me anymore. I said, man, dude, he plays like that, I play like this. We all have our, it goes back to what I said earlier. There's room enough for all of us.
Yeah.
And we have to find value within what we're able to do. And you have to use that gift, whatever level and through what you've been through, God will bring you back to whereas you are a valuable and an asset to any situation that you endeavor. And you have to own that. You have to take ownership of that, and you have to be comfortable with that. You can't beat yourself up and become frustrated because of what you can't do. Celebrate what you can do and do that the best you can do, man. And dude, that's all you got to do.
That's hard. Yeah.
That's all you have to do, man. That's what I'm going to do tonight.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be some hot shot 35, 40-year-old kid out there killing the drums, man. I'm going to play what I play. And you guys, and I know what I do is going to be good, and it's going to be different. So there's something for you guys to do too.
Yeah. There's only one of you. That's what they have to enjoy. That's what they have to respect.
Well, I like to call that self-confidence.
Yeah.
You know, there's a thin line between self-confidence and arrogance and conceit and ego.
Yep.
Man, for me, man, all of that is suppressed. I'm comfortable with my journey, where I'm at in my life. You know, I don't really have many regrets at all about my life. There's things that I may have done differently, but I'm not going to lament my past.
Yeah.
I'm going to celebrate my future and try to adjust and reset myself, reinvent myself to be the new version, you know?
Wow. I'm trying to get there. I want to be where you are saying these things right now.
Well, I mean, you got to play, you got to put the work in. It takes work. You got to work.
Rehearsals start this weekend. I got hired back by the same band when I crashed just yesterday.
There you go.
So
Well, that's a blessing, man. And I'm sure you do fine, Burke. I'm sure you'll be okay.
got to cram just like you.
Well, dude, the way you come into the situation says a lot to the other guys. Because if you come in there like you've been hurt or you coming in less than, they'll see that.
Yeah.
But if you come in with self-confidence, like, hey, guys, you know where I've been. I'm going to do the best I can do. That's all anybody expects from any of us is do the best you can.
Sure. Dude, you're a great spirit. Thank you for your time. When we're done, I'll send you my phone number. And anytime you're in Seattle, never hesitate. You always got a place in the mountains by a lake.
Well, my daughter lives in Portland, man. I get up there fairly frequently. And I love the Northwest.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like, man, I spent a month and a half in Seattle with this band I was touring with back in the late 70s. And dude, 6 weeks in Seattle, man, and we only had 3 days of sunshine.
Yeah, I know. It's no joke. It's no myth.
But the caveat for me was great seafood.
Sure.
Yeah, great food, man. But yeah, the rain used to kill me, man. I mean, every day I was like,
I gotta change my socks all the time. I'm taking the dogs on a walk. I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I want that LA sun.
Yeah, there's a music scene in Seattle, though, man. There's a guy out there, a drummer, Mel Brown. Is he still up there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. There's some jazz.
There's a lot of talent. It's very concentrated.
Yeah.
Hey, have a good gig. Go brush up.
Oh, dude, I gotta go load up now because I gotta leave in about an hour and a half. The gig starts at 6, so I got a few hours here to have lunch and go do the gig. Matter of fact, I get to eat dinner, so I'm taking my wife, and we're gonna have a good time tonight.
I know you kill it.
I'll do my best.
All right, sir. Thanks again. I'll send you a link when this is done.
Give me the bump, bro. There you go.
Boom.
And
See you later.
Yeah, send me this when you get through editing or whatever you're gonna do to this. I'd love to have this and put it on my website.
Cool. Good luck on the new record.
Oh, dude, wait till you hear it. I think you'd be impressed. I got real quick. A couple of weeks ago, we had a listening party because we've done mixing and stuff. Actually, I wanted to kind of everybody to hear the mixes.
Yeah.
And there were some observations made and some adjustments made. But man, dude, and some people whose opinions I value were there. One guy in particular, he said, Ronnie Beck, said, man, this is the best record you ever made. And that really spoke volumes to me.
Wow.
And I've kind of been high on that for the past couple of weeks, man. My guru said to me, dude, you got a good record here. So, and I'm feeling
You
my
just
wife.
been buzzing.
It's motivation for me, man, to have something that you've done and other people listen to it and they like it. That gives me the energy to get behind it and do the work that I need to do to bring it to fruition. Because we don't know when we write and do stuff, man, and nobody hears it. And there's a lot of guys that do stuff that people never hear, so they don't even know where they rank.
Especially people that you trust. It could be like your sister saying that, but if it's someone that you trust, you respect, and they're telling you that. Yeah.
In my family, they'll tell me the truth.
Oh, okay.
They're all critics. Yeah,
Not
they'll let
mine.
me know. And the people I surround myself with, we have an honest and a transparent relationship. So, I mean, they tell me the truth. Because they'll say, man, I don't know about that. Or they say, man, there you go. And that's the kind of people I surround myself with, so I can try to always be at my best. I don't want people to lie to me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't need fans. I need critics to a degree, but nah. I didn't ask you to critique my music. I just wanted you to listen to it.
Iron sharpens iron.
There you go. Bert, peace, bro.
All right, man. I'll send you a thing later.
Yeah. Send me your phone number and stuff, and we'll make sure we have each other's number.
Cool.
All
Have
right,
fun.
bro.
Have fun tonight.
Have a great